Good afternoon, everyone. It's Steve Capra, and to all the friends of Bold Visions Conservation, I'll start again with an apology for my voice. I am working to get it fixed. We have the great pleasure today to talk with Tom Rodgers. If you've been to our website, you see Tom works with us in Washington, D.C. Tom has an exceptional bio, and I thought it was time people begin to have an understanding of who this great man is. And he is a superstar to have on your team. So, Tom, first of all, thank you. And maybe you could start out by explaining a little bit about your background.
Yeah. Well, Steve. So nice to see you again this evening and hear your voice. Thank you for those very kind words. I'm I grew up in literally the middle of nowhere, Steve. Small town in eastern Montana, and it literally was found to be by the Washington Post and the U.S. Geographical Survey as the most isolated small town in the continental United States. And
Wow,
it's a little town called Glasgow, Montana. When I was a little boy, our nearest McDonald's was 320 miles.
incredible.
Yeah, and but it was a great place to grow up. You never had to lock your keys in the car or lock your car up. Never had to lock your home, and everybody was relatively, except for unfortunately our Native American brothers and sisters, everything was essentially somewhat equal, and that was the beauty of it.
Boy,
Uh,
I'll-
but but it was it was that old saying: "You tell me where you're, the landscape where you're from, and I'll tell you who you are." And so I was from wheat fields that moved like water in June when the wind would go across the top of the wheat and when it's green and it would move like waves or the face. There's a great song called The Face of God on Water. And you would see these beautiful wheat fields just move and undulate. And then I worked on the Fort Peck Reservation installing septic tanks. I worked at Hayes Lodgepole, the Fort Belknap Indian Community, um, as a concrete finisher. I worked on my grandfather's ranch north of Browning in Babb, Montana. Um, and so I've been around Native people all my life. Of course, my beautiful mother, was Native Blackfeet. And I would spend part of my summers and my vacations up in and around Browning. I could never understand how this country with so much wealth and so much bounty could allow for these incredible islands of extreme poverty within their midst. And I left there,
today,
yeah,
sadly.
and I left there, the great state of Montana, cut a deal with my mom. I said, Mom, I want to go to Colorado, go to school there. I went to undergrad, law school, graduate law in tax. Um, then I very fortunately was approached to apply for a federal clerkship with the chief judge here at the U.S. Tax Court in D.C. So I sold my 78 Z28 Camaro, Steve,
Oh no.
for $500. It paid for my plane ticket out and part of my first month's rent. And I landed here in DC, and I'd never been east of Minneapolis, and hated it. I had no money. I had no friends. I had no family. I had no girlfriend anymore. And my suitcase was my dinner table and my coffee table. And I ordered a Domino's pizza the first night I was here. No TV, no phone, no furniture, no bed. Um, but out of that, it was the best career decision I've ever made because I worked with this judge for a year, and we had a disagreement on one court case. I thought that the government was overreaching, and he said to me prophetically, Tom, if you don't agree with my position on this case, there's only one solution. You should change the law, and you should go up there. And he pointed to the U.S. Capitol, and I took his advice to heart. And Senator Baucus from Montana, who was the incoming chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, was advertising or had put out a notice that he needed a tax advisor for his Senate office. And so I went up there with my resume, sat in the lobby of the office, and the chief of staff came out and said, "You're from Glasgow, Montana?" No one's from Glasgow, Montana. And I said, "I am." And fortunately, I did get the job, and had a incredible experience of meeting people from all over the country, all over the world, and working for the people of Montana, and also working specifically for Native people. And I left there, established my own business as a consulting practice, and I've been doing that for over 30 years, almost 35 years now.
You got a little more education too, didn't you?
Oh, yes, I went back. I realized early in the 90s, mid 90s, dating myself, I've always been incredibly interested in Asia and the Eastern way of thinking because Native people essentially emigrated from Asia, and I was attracted to and interested in the Eastern way of thinking, both as it pertains to life in this world and in the next. And so I went back and went to Johns Hopkins, their School of International Studies, and got my degree in China Studies.
Wow.
Because there's a great line by Napoleon, is "Woe to the man who awakens China."
There you go.
And that proved very prescient. And then I also went back and pursued an executive MBA at Georgetown.
That's
Uh, so that's my educational aspect of it. But probably the greatest lesson I got, Steve, is I've had the great fortune of being a whistleblower on a major scandal. According to the Washington Post, the largest congressional scandal in the last 100 years. It led to the largest rewrite of ethics laws since Watergate.
And who was the man that broke that law?
Well, Mr. Jack Abramoff was his name.
Yeah.
He stole in excess of 70, 80, $90 million from Native American tribes,
My God.
and used that to finance a number of his pursuits. And so that was extremely unfortunate. But my mother asked me what it felt like because I didn't do that for money. I never took a penny. It cost me a lot of money and it cost me a lot of time. I said, "But Mom, it reminded me of Marie." And she goes, "Oh my God." She goes, "Marie?" I said, "Yes." Well, Steve, Marie was my first love.
Oh, wow.
She was the first woman who could make me nauseous just by looking at her.
I've experienced that.
Yeah. And I said, and in a good way. And I said, "Mom, when you do something, the right thing, at the very right critical moment, under extreme pressure, and you do it for no other reason than it's right, and you find that within yourself, the only experience I can analogize to is my first love."
It's great.
Because I found something inside of me that I didn't know I had,
Right.
just like with Marie. I,
Exactly.
I found a love that I didn't know I had.
That's that's so great. So, Tom, you and I have known each other a few years, when you say,
Oh yeah.
and so people have a background. I went to Tom when I first came up with a concept for the National Monument, and I didn't want a photo shoot. I wanted a partner in working on this. And, Tom's listening to my crazy idea and he's telling me, yeah, Steve, I think this could happen. And so for people who don't really understand, people say to me, and a lot of foundations have said to me, well, there's nothing you could do with the Trump administration. You're in DC, you're in the halls of Congress. First of all, I imagine it's as chaotic as it's ever been. But you know, and I know there's a thing called organizing.
Yeah.
And Tom, by the way, is a master at it. So, explain a little bit to people about what we're attempting to do and how you see your role in this.
Well, you first of all, thank you, Steve, for reaching out to me. Your faith in me and my ability and to Native people. Because
Absolutely.
I want to do a shout out here to Mr. Steve Capra. The environmental community has a fairly checkered past when it comes to reaching out to minorities
Yes.
and specifically Native people, the first stewards of this land. And Steve magnanimously and just with an incredible sense of self awareness, and I say that with capital letters, not small letters, reached out to me and asked me if I would love to assist him in any capacity when it comes to working on environmental issues that are important to Native people. And, we as Native people have a much more holistic approach to the world and the environment and the climate. And I said, I would love to. There was no hesitation, there was no concern, because I know what motivates you, and our values are in alignment, as is our passion. And so when we started discussing, as you can see, my beautiful brother or sister to over my shoulder, that greets me every day as I descend down from my bedroom upstairs in my home. That sits at the foot of my stairs.
Wow.
Um, and as we call the wolf, the mokiye, it starts with our creation stories. We call the Milky Way the Mokiye Trail. Yes, the very galaxy that we exist in, the stardust, is the Mokiye Trail. And it is personal to me, extremely personal. And because the woman who I loved and loved for decades, I lost over 4 years now to pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
And not too far removed from her death, she was in the intensive care unit at Georgetown University Hospital. We held our hands together the day that she was told she had a month to live. And that day that we were told that was my birthday.
Mm.
And she turned to me, and to show you the grace that she had, she says, "Oh, love, I am so sorry you had to hear this on your birthday."
Oh, God.
That was the measure of her. And I said, "Oh, my love," I said, "please don't be afraid tomorrow or the next day." I said, "The Mokiye will greet you. She is feminine. She is our protector. She will walk you to your star, and there she will reside next to you. But please, please honor two requests of mine. Please wait for me, and please light campfires for me so that I can find you when I leave this world."
Explains why we had those solar flares last week. She's got a bonfire going.
And I asked the physician to come in, the oncologist. I says, "Ben, you've been with us for 84 chemo treatments. will you do Andrea and I one last favor? Would you administer the morphine every hour? And I know what that means. And so does she. He said, that's the least I can do. So I crawled into bed with her and I whispered in her ear, and this goes to Steve, what my mission in life is. I said, my works will honor you from this moment forward, and I will become a walking memory of you, my love. And hopefully someday I can name a meadow after you. And she turned to me with words from the divine that I will never hear again. And she said, when your heart begins to heal, I will send someone to love you. So that is the motivation, whether it be the Mokiye, whether it be to say that hurtful name of the Custer Gallatin National Forest,
Right.
named after a man who was abhorrent in every way possible, a slaughter of Native women and children. And if I can honor my former beloved by naming a simple meadow after her, I will have felt my life is complete. Because as you also know, Steve, these past few years I've worked diligently to change the names of a couple mountains.
Absolutely.
A mountain named after an individual in Yellowstone Park who slaughtered 200 Blackfeet women and children and wrote in his report, a report to the BIA, that as he sat on the banks of the Marias River, he was heartened to see the cold waters of the Marias River merge with the warm waters of the Blackfeet blood,
God.
women and children.
You know,
And he's following one other thing, Steve. He said, soldiers, if you do run out of bullets, you can use the steel pickaxes on them. So our history in this country is, in some ways, abhorrent. It has its moments of beauty, but it is moments of history which inform me. Now, they don't imprison me, Steve, but they do inform me.
well,
And
Tom,
so,
I want to just feed off of that to say you and I have experienced some blowback by some in the conservation community.
yes,
And we were on one call where I felt like you were completely insulted by people, which just drove me crazy. I'm being told the Native Americans are paying you, Steve. This
yeah,
Tom is going to take Yellowstone, all this kind of
right.
stuff. And, for everyone like that, I think there's 10 more people who just really want us to work together and see the wisdom in it.
Oh, it's this 2 points. The people who say to you, "Oh my God, during this administration, the environmental aspects will not be able, issues will not be able to be addressed." If you ever done any organizing, I do a lot of voting rights, a lot of voting rights. You don't start voting rights the month before an election.
No
You any effort, any community effort, is like building a house. That's the best
analogy. Yep.
you could ever use. It's building a foundation. I've poured concrete. I've been a sheetrocker. You have to take the time that you have now to build the foundation so you can execute. Legislation, usually from concept to gestation to enactment, usually takes 4 to 5 years.
Right.
That has been my experience in my 35 years of doing this. And so for those people who say, oh, stop. It doesn't. No, you've got to just methodically, and to quote another famous Chinese leader and philosopher, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly.
That's what you have to do. And for those also, the second point, I am saddened, not so much angry, saddened that the too many individuals in the environmental community um, have sought to denigrate Native Americans. Only now, only I would say within the last 5 years, maybe, have people in the environmental community sought to reach out to us, sought to use us as messengers. With you, Steve, I feel as a complete partnership.
Right.
There is no, I do not feel in any way disrespected. I do not feel diminished. But once again, when I learn new facts, I sometimes change my mind. What do you do, sir? And when you find out the words that, yes, these environmentalists, John Muir, and what his works did in Yosemite, but there were native indigenous people in Yosemite before John Muir.
Right.
And if we remember correctly what Mr. Muir said about native people,
It was not good.
no, it was not. And like I said, no man should be judged on a day's work, a week's work, or maybe even a year's work. His entire lifetime should be a landscape.
And
But what is troubling consistently, and we encounter this, is this people feel that as to use the doctrine of discovery, that this country only opened up the day that the Europeans arrived.
oh God,
And specifically, white males
I know.
arrived. And that is fundamentally wrong. And they've gotten away from it for too long. And for those who remain quiet in the face of that, like I do on voting rights, remember what Martin Luther King said?
That's right.
My anger will not be reserved for those who call me nigger.
It's very
And,
profound.
and it will not be reserved, it won't be drawn out to those who denigrate and disrespect me. It will be reserved for those who remain quiet and know better, because they become complicit. Those are the ones when I do voting rights in Montana, I expect the racism. I was told recently, just a year ago, from a county commissioner in Roosevelt County, what are you Indians doing in our elections?
Oh God. It's like 1930. I mean, what are people doing like this?
So
What
I expect that. But what I don't expect is people in the environmental community to still remain quiet, because quiet in the face of racism is complicity.
well, I'll say one more thing to that, and that is the fact that I've had numerous people say to me, well, this tribe's doing this wrong and this tribe's doing this wrong. And every time I hear that, I say, well, what about all the white men who did things wrong? I mean, are you kidding me? It's not like tribes are all exactly alike.
There's 500, Steve, there's 576 Indian tribes in this country.
Yeah.
Um, each have their own cultural values, their own history, their own geography. Are there some that I question with regard to their environmental roles? Yes. But what it needs to be remembered is that the vast majority of tribes, and I don't like people who, once again, because we've seen too much of it, who engage in this whataboutism. Answer the direct question. The tribes, as a general principle, and just use Chief Seattle's beautiful words
Oh, yeah.
about a man who was consumed by the holistic nature of the Creator and what our environment meant. and how we view why should we as a people, why did it take me a decade to change the name of a mountain named after a war criminal? Why is one of the largest peaks in Grand Teton National Park named after a pedophile, Mr. Woodring?
Why do we have a
Those,
president of the United States right now like we do? And what's not respected is our country is 250 years old. You native people have been here 12,000 years at least. I mean, you might tell me even more. And my whole point is there's no respect for the experience that comes from that knowledge.
oh, you're even seeing now the Forest Service for the first time adopting some of our methods of forest management. You're seeing, our carbon footprint on this land.
Oh my Lord.
We, the native people as a whole, and I cannot speak for every tribe, nor can any other person speak. And I don't, like I said, I don't mean to cast an incredible wide net over every environmental interest, but there are voices out there, voices which are, it is just blatant racism and ignorance.
Ignorance is the key.
Ignorance. And I'm sorry, you know, you're seeing, we just had a huge story just the other day on, 3 full pages in the New York Times
Yep.
about how one of the seminal environmental interests, communities, is lost. And all what you and I are trying to do, Steve, is elevate the discussion, elevate the debate, work diligently, quietly, methodically. We've built alliances with the young youth of Montana. We built alliances with the native people of Montana, where we seek to be inclusive,
Absolutely.
where other organizations or environmental voices seek to be exclusive.
Right. Is one of
If
the
you're if,
problems.
if you're not, and forgive me, Steve, and you're sometimes you're more tribal than some of the Native Americans I've met.
Well,
But there's this older white male who's upset that he no longer controls the agenda.
exactly.
That he no longer he isn't, forgive me, he isn't the massa that I got to pick cotton for.
Exactly.
And I am sorry. Life is about building coalitions.
It
It's
is.
about building a community. And that is how true change comes about. Because if you just restrict it to one interest, that issue never is completely solved. It's only when you make it community wide. I call it rings of compassion. You start off with just yourself, your family, your community, and you let the compassion ring out, and you build these beautiful coalitions. The fact that we still have a Custer Gallatin National Forest.
It's a disgrace. Yeah, but we're going backwards with the administration we have. I want to move this conversation forward, Tom, and just say this. Um, when I worked on monuments and I worked to get two in New Mexico, we created broad coalitions. That was the key to it, no questions asked. And it wasn't easy. And I had $1.5 million a year to work with to do this monument. Now, you know, my finances are not great,
Mhm.
but I want people to understand, you're hanging out with some pretty big names, and we will get rid of the Trump administration. There will be a change. And you're in an incredible place to support this by what you've accomplished in Washington, D.C. Could you speak about that just a little bit?
Well, I mean, it's once again, life is about, well, the ultimate goal of life is to love and be loved.
Yeah, of course.
But to truly affect change is you need to build relationships. And relationships I was never prepared when I first came here from Montana of how incredibly vast and diverse this country is.
Oh, I'm sure.
Of course, being from a small farming community in northeastern Montana, you think everybody's the same, everybody thinks the same. No, you get here and from Midtown Manhattan to Manhattan, Montana to Manhattan Beach in California,
Yeah,
uh, everybody thinks differently.
absolutely.
And so, but if you truly listen to people and hear them, most importantly, I have I had friendships spanning from Democrats, from some of the more liberal areas to some of the more conservative people in the United States Senate.
Did you just go on a little trip with a rather conservative gentleman from Idaho?
Oh yes, it was. He is a there is an illustrative, poignant vignette. Congressman Mike Simpson is a fully formed man. People always ask me who I would like to have president. I said I would like a fully formed human being.
Oh boy, we got a child right now.
Yeah. Not a not trauma, not just fully formed. And Mike Simpson is a Republican from Idaho. And but he carries his Native American heart right there. He is an incredibly beautiful man, both externally and internally. He listens and he hears, and that is a man you can work with, and you can seek an accommodation. I brought him up to he as chairman of the Interior Appropriation Subcommittee in the House. He had never been to the Battle of the Little Bighorn Memorial Battlefield, and so he asked me if we could meet there, and we did just that. He flew out to Idaho and drove up. I flew out to Billings and drove over. And he is just class and grace personified. And that is what you do back here. If you're going to affect change, Steve, and we're going to prevail on this, on our monument. Right now, unfortunately, environmental issues are beholden to take it, give it back, take it, give it back, take it, give it back. And it's this constant whipsaw. But there should be, like with Native people, an accommodation of understanding the history, understanding what it means to truly love Mother Nature, the creator of all things, and to love diverse points of view as long as they're not rooted in hatred and racism. You can,
But
you
there's a little bit of hatred also towards wildlife. Have you been seeing that in Montana in particular?
well, it's a we all come from different cultures.
Mhm.
And I try also, one of the first things they teach you at the CIA is to understand the person sitting across from you at the table. And like a reconciliation, like the beautiful poem by Walt Whitman called Reconciliation at the end of the Civil War.
Right.
And he talks about the three sisters of night, and he's an own person speaking, and he's wearing a navy blue suit on purpose.
Uh-huh.
And his adversary is wearing a gray suit on purpose.
Of course.
And he was a nurse, as you know, in the Civil War
Mm.
in DC.
Wow.
And that trauma informed him. And he talks about how, in the ultimate reconciliation, in his navy blue suit, he bends down and kisses the man in the gray suit,
Wow.
the man who's dead. And so when I approach in this town, I truly, before I go into a meeting, I try and understand where the person who is sitting across from me, what has formed him as a man or a woman, what are their life experiences, what are their life choices, what has brought them to this moment in this position. And if you understand that and you empathize with that and you have compassion for that, and you begin your discussion with, thank you for your time, and it is so wonderful to meet you. And you say that with authenticity, not with Washington, D.C. fakery, but with true authenticity. And you begin to have a discussion, and then in a different way, you become friends.
Yeah.
And then you can understand how they got to that position. And like Chief Sitting Bull, Steve, come, come together, my chiefs, and let us sit down and talk and see what kind of world we can build for our children. That is the discussion we should be having in the environmental community.
All the time. And I will say to you, Tom, in regards to that, when I worked on Rio Grande del Norte, we have what's called land grants here in New Mexico. And
Right.
tribes in northern New Mexico, they don't like each other very much. And so when we were starting that monument, people said, you'll never get them to come together. But over time, we got them to come together, and they agreed in principle that they would support that monument. Monuments aren't created overnight. The monuments I worked on took 9 years, and 9 years is speck in time. It's
Oh,
speck in time. But what we're trying to do is hand something. My wife was saying to me the other day, she goes, "Oh, you want to plant a tree and all this? We'll be dead by the time that thing grows up." I said, "It doesn't matter. We have to do this." And I said, my whole career has been about making things better for generations to come. And that's what protecting the land is. And I have to say again, Tom hangs out with some really important people. He's being insanely modest right now. And I want to say, we're working on a monument together. It's a big dream. It's always these things are a big dream. And there's so many naysayers along the way. But there comes a moment where people start to understand it and start to support it. And we are not, Tom is very good and knows the entire Montana delegation, but they haven't been too keen on the environment. And that's why the monument bypasses Congress. But that's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to preserve. And that's why we need people to be engaged and to really come out, see this area, and buy into this concept. And as you can see, I mean, I used to go back and lobby 3, 4 times a year. I've got Tom there. Tom looks at me and says, "Be quiet. Let me handle this."
well, as you know, Steve, I'm a big Edgar Allan Poe fan.
Yeah,
Um, One of his favorite quotes are, most men dream at night, but I, the true dreamer, dream during the day.
yeah,
And this monument, I mean, what what a legacy for not myself, or for you.
no,
What a legacy for the 10,000, the 20,000, the 100,000, the million of the young women and children who come after us.
exactly.
That is the power. I mean, you remember that great movie, and forgive me, I'm dating myself, ladies and gentlemen, but in Patton, where George C. Scott says, hopefully, grandson, as you sit on your grandfather's knee, and you ask your grandfather what he did during the World War II, you won't have to say, "Well, I shoveled shit in Louisiana." And if you can leave something bigger than yourself, and as I told you before when we started this interview and this conversation, it's more of a conversation, it's not an interview. When you can do something at the right time for no money, under extreme pressure, and I've had all my career naysayers. You can't do Jack Abramoff.
Yeah.
You can't do voting rights for Native people. You can't change the name of a mountain. You can't change the name of another mountain.
Tom and I share one thing, and that's grit determination.
Oh, yeah.
We both want to, I've read so many times people on their deathbed say, "Oh, I wish I had spent more time with my family. I wish I hadn't done that much work, all that." When I think of my deathbed, I think I will feel proud of what I've tried to do. I may not have accomplished everything, and it's people like you that I meet along the way. These are like minor miracles, but sometimes people come into your life for the right reason, and Tom is really the right reason. Tom could be charging me a fortune, and Tom has a big heart, and he does a lot of pro bono work for the tribes of Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana. And this is a man with a heart and a man with a conviction to do what's right.
Steve, like I said, before Andrea died, as she said to me, don't rush to me in death. You have so much good work left to do.
Exactly.
And after she died, I lost about 30 pounds and I got horrible eczema all over my body. And my heart was racing. And it would go up and down, up and down. So I went to my cardiologist and I said, my friend, I'm a little lost. I said, I cannot control this. And we did the requisite tests, CT scans, calcium scores, all of it, stress tests. And then he took me in his office and he said the following, Steve. And it gets to where we're going with this. He says, Tom, you have a broken heart.
Mm,
There's nothing architecturally wrong with your heart, but you have Japanese broken heart syndrome.
wow. That's
So
how big the heart was.
he said, you need to decide, Tom, whether you want to live or die. And I know she, as you told me, it was her professed desire for you to live and continue to do good works. There's a great line out of a gentleman, Mr. Frankel, out of World War II. If you can decide to live, you can survive anyhow. And I had to come to grips with, after losing her and my mother within 2 months of each other, my two North Stars, that it was the purpose that saved me.
There you
So
go.
when you talk about, legacy and, not financial reward is not the end all be all. The end all be all is to love and be loved.
Yeah.
And in that moment when he was telling me about my broken heart, I said, I do have purpose in life. And my purpose is to work with Native people. It is to work to create more beauty in this world. And most importantly, to eliminate suffering from our own human race and suffering from the beautiful as we think of them. We think of them as Native people, our Native brothers and sisters,
Yes.
because the creatures of this earth, they're not animals to us.
Oh,
They just wear different clothes.
that's wonderful, Tom. Well, I'm gonna say we've covered some ground here. If you have any last thoughts related to how we get this done or that people should understand, we're in the, like you say, early stages of something important. And I want to thank you and send my love to you. You're a great friend. And I want people to understand this is a working relationship, but turned into an incredible friendship. So thank you, Tom.
Oh no, um, you're just Steve. There's nothing here but love and grace for you. You are just another beautiful example of what passion and grit and perseverance can mean. And you gave me more purpose. And as I said to her, I will become a walking memory of you. And if I can ever reach that moment where I can name a meadow after my beautiful beloved Andrea, then I can lay down and leave this world knowing that I've given everything I have.
Oh, I'm imagining a lot of people have some tears in their eyes listening to this. And again, I want to thank you for taking the time because his schedule is insane. So thank you, Tom, and thank you
Uh,
for the work you do for Bold Visions. And he'll be coming out to Montana every now and then. And maybe
yeah.
at some point, we'll invite a bunch of people to come and meet Tom.
Oh,
I
Steve,
would
you're love and grace to you, my friend. Love and grace to you.
same to you. Have a great night. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.